So our today's guest lecturer is a management consultant. He's a social entrepreneur. He's a sports administrator. And like I mentioned, he's also a politician. Beyond these things that he does, he's a member and a fellow of the prestigious Young African Leaders Fellowship of the European University Institute. He's also a PhD student and also has 2 master's degrees in economic policy management and development finance. One of the things he did, as I know, is that he was SRC president in his days at the University of Ghana when he was a student during the undergrad days. He has impacted a lot of young people, both within this country and outside of this country. And his life is a testimony that we will all listen to and learn 1 or 2 things as he transitioned from student leadership to national politics, which I do because we've already spent a lot of time. Let's put our hands together and welcome Edem Agbana.
Good afternoon. And let me say a big thank you to my friend and brother. I have known your lecturer, Eugene, for almost a decade now. And I must say, he's a very amazing young man, and he's passionate about what he does. And I'm happy to be with you this afternoon. My name is Eric Edem Agbana, and I am a politician and all the other things that he read out. I'm a sports administrator. I own a sports football academy. I am managing a team that is currently playing in the Ghana Premier League. I'm a farmer. I do a number of things. But today, I'm here to share my experience with you as a former student leader who has successfully transitioned into national politics. And I hope that my experiences and the lessons I picked up from student leadership and from national politics will help shape your aspirations. I'm excited speaking to you as young people because we have come to a point in our history as a country where young people are very apathetic about leadership because we equate leadership to politics. And so many of you make statements or remarks like, I hate politics. I don't want to do politics. I'm not a politician. And so because of that, many of you are not interested in what happens, the decisions that your leaders are taking. Recently, there was a demonstration against Galamsey. It was just a walk. For many people, that was the first time they were hearing about Galamsey. But this afternoon, at the end of this session, and it will be a very interactive session, and so you are free to raise your hands, ask questions, challenge some of the points that I make. I love to have such interactions because critical debates are very healthy for a class like this. And so I want to encourage each and every one of you to be very particular, take very keen interest in issues of leadership, in how our leaders act, how your resources are used, and things that goes into how this country is run. Because whether or not you like politics, the outcome of the political process has an impact on all of us. Do we all agree? Whether or not you're a politician, the leadership we have can to a very large extent even determine the quality of education that you acquire. Do we agree? And so don't sit at home and say, I don't like politics. Because of that, I will not follow or be interested in what is happening. So I want it to be a very interactive session, and let's share ideas. learn from each other. Now, let me begin by telling you about my history as a student leader. When I was in the junior high school, when I was in the primary school, I schooled in a very deprived community, a very deprived school, where we started by staying under trees, classrooms with very few teachers, no computers. We started going to school without shoes. The black polythene bag was the most common school bag for your books and all of that. And so I started from such a background in a community called Hipe in the Ketu North municipality. Now, in that community, I was very confident because among the students, among my peers, because my dad, who was a driver in Accra, anytime he was coming home for funerals or Christmas, he usually would get you some nice shoes or shirts and other things that many of the other kids were not privileged to have. And so among my peers, even though we're all from very humble beginning, I also considered myself more privileged than the rest. And so I was very confident. But when I got to JSS 1, then JSS, not junior high school, then it was JSS. Now it is junior high school. When I got to JSS 1, my dad decided to move me to Accra because, according to him, he wanted me to have quality education. And then in the village, when you write BEC, the average pass or the best times, the best student grabs aggregate 42, 45. And that is the reality of the situation still in many communities. You may want to find out. There are schools, even in my constituency today, that at the end of the BEC, the best candidate is coming out with aggregate 35. And that's the best candidate. So my dad wanted to avoid such a situation. And so he brought me to Accra to continue my education. When I got to Accra, I enrolled at La Bawaleshi Presby School. How many of you know Bawaleshi? You know the school there. Now that school is very beautiful because not too long ago, they got all those classroom blocks. When I was a student there, we were running shifts. Sometimes you come in the morning and all of we were having this shift system. And it was not a very beautiful school as you see it today. So even though I was schooling in Accra, it is still a Saito, as we used to call it. So yes, you're schooling in Islegon and all, but as compared to the other schools around, Bawaleshi was considered the most deprived school in the area. And so I was enrolled at that school, and I started junior high school there again. When I got to junior high school, my first term, I was scared to speak in class because I came from a background where we never used to speak English in school, even at the primary school level. And so I was scared to speak because I didn't have the confidence to interact with my colleagues speaking English. And so for the whole term, it was such a difficulty to even raise your hand and mention your name for me. So that term, out of the 120 plus in the class, I was 54. Yeah, I was the 54th person in terms of performance. Then I realized that I was doing well in maths and some other subjects, but not very good in English because in my background, we didn't used to speak English. And so there are schools where you go to junior high school, people are in Form 3 preparing for BEC, and they cannot put a sentence together in English. Do you believe that? There are many schools like that still. And so I had a similar experience growing up. So when I got to JSS, I was so scared that I lost confidence. When I got to Form 3, I realized that I was improving. I improved so much, but I was still afraid to speak out because I was afraid that these kids or my colleagues were speaking very good English. Now I'm just coming from the Volta region, from a very deprived community. I didn't want them to laugh at me or laugh at my diction and all of that, so I refused to speak. So at the time, my first experience with leadership was we have this weekly roster or whatever they prepare, where they will put you, the Form 3 students, on duty. Then you command assembly, you speak, ensure that the school compound is clean and all of that. I don't know if any of you have had such an experience. Anytime I was placed on duty, I faked sickness and I would never report in school because I was so afraid to address the entire school. So I avoided an interaction with my colleagues till I finished GSS. I went to Maoli School in Ho. When I got to Maoli School, I was still a very timid boy. Yes, I knew I was intelligent. I knew that I had the potentials, but I didn't have the confidence because of my background. I allowed my background to intimidate me, so I placed limitations on myself. But there was a turning point. I got a school father who said, "You write so well, and you speak so well when you are in the dormitory. Why do you have to speak in class or among your friends?" And so he got me to be a member of the debate society, the debate club in Maoli School. And one day we went to the dining hall, and my school father was on duty. Then all of a sudden he called me and said I should mount one of the tables and then say a word of prayer before the entire school. That day, I was virtually shivering because that was the first time I had such an encounter. So many students, thousands of students, and I was called to pray. I tried it, but I was shivering. It was obvious I was so nervous I couldn't do it. But through the debate society, I kept improving and improving. And by the time I left Maoli School, I became a prefect. I became the president of the debate society. And I left the school as the school's best debater for the year 2008-2009 because I improved due to the experience with the debate society. So when I came to the University of Ghana, I joined the University of Ghana Debate Society as well. And by my second semester, I was already a leading debater for my department, which was the political science department. And by my second year, I was debating for the University of Ghana. I recall being part of the team that led the university's debate team to win the national championship here in Ghana and the West African championship in Nigeria. We qualified from West Africa for the African championship in South Africa, but we couldn't make it. I couldn't make it at the time because I didn't have a passport. That was the first time we were given just about 3 weeks to work on passport. I couldn't get it at the time, so the team went without me. So by level 200, I was very confident. I was well known across the university as an activist, and I used to write articles about challenges that students were facing and all of that. And so the students really liked me, and they encouraged me to run for SRC president. Now, here's where the story begins. Humble beginnings, very funny background, no support systems. My dad was just a driver, and he was scared. He says, but politics is for people who are rich. Where will I get money to fund you and all of that? But my friends contributed, and to cut a long story short, I went into the contest and I won the election to be the SRC president of the University of Ghana. And that is, let me say, the turning point of my life, because through that experience, I met people, politicians, entrepreneurs. I started engaging with business owners and all of that. So I became a household name at the University of Ghana. By the time I was leaving school, I became so popular because I was an activist. My vice chancellor at the time used to call me rebel leader because I fought the university management on many issues, many policies, fought them on the school fees related issues and other issues in the interest of students. So when I was leaving the school, I got many offers from politicians, NPP, NDC, and all the others. In fact, when I was in school, I said I was CPP because I wanted to avoid NDC MPP controversy. So I described myself as an Nkrumahist or a CPP activist, but I eventually joined the National Democratic Congress, and today, thank you, and today I am a parliamentary candidate for the party in my constituency. And if you know the history of my constituency, which is Ketu North, some people, you can say comfortably that by 7th December 2024, I will be elected as a member of parliament. And I'm just 33 years, by the way. I'm just 33 years, by the way. So most likely to be the youngest MP in the next parliament. Now, throughout this journey, there are a few lessons that I would want to share with you and to encourage you, especially those of you with the ambition of becoming leaders. And when we talk about leadership, not just in the political sphere, we're talking about leadership, all-round leadership. You can be a leader in business, leader in whatever it is that you want to do. It is important for you to acquire some skills or the mindset of a leader. Student leadership is the springboard for producing national leaders. It is undeniable. More than 95% of the leaders we see today are people who were student leaders. It means that if you want to produce leaders with integrity, leaders who are responsible, leaders who are accountable, and leaders who are honest, we must pay attention to the kind of leaders we are producing at the student level. Because whatever qualities or values that we see in our leaders today, many of them picked it up from the student level. So some of the very corrupt leaders that we see today were corrupt then as student leaders. And so student leadership has become a platform for recruiting, grooming, and resourcing the leaders for the future. And so when you are in school, it is a platform for you to acquire the right leadership skills that you need so that we can change the narrative about leadership in this country. The biggest problem we have today as a country, and I'm not talking politics, is that we have a leadership crisis, especially even on the continent. We have a leadership crisis. Everything that is wrong with us is an issue of leadership. What are the challenges? We have natural resources. God has blessed us with very good land and all the resources that we need as a continent. But why do we have challenges? Because we have challenge with leadership. And leadership is everything. I tell people, if you want to emphasize on how important good leadership is and how leaders, individuals, can transform a nation, then you need to pay attention to the Singapore story. How Lee Kuan Yew alone as a leader transformed his country from a third world country to a first class, to a first world economy that today many of us yearn to travel to such countries. At the time Ghana gained independence, our GDP was way bigger than that of Singapore. But what happened? The journey has been one of terrible leadership, irresponsible leadership, corruption, and all of that. How do we change that narrative? how do we produce the right leaders for our country? It starts with us as young people. And so student leaders, student leadership, student activism has become the breeding ground for our leaders. So we need to pay attention to that. Recently, I was invited to a school, a university, to speak to the SRC leadership. And then the MC introduced the SRC president and mentioned his name. For example, the SRC president is Mr. Jerry Joy, and the students clapped. Then they invited the general secretary to give a welcome address, and the general secretary said his first remark was he wanted to correct the MC, and that the MC failed to mention the appropriate title for the SRC president, which is His Excellency Jerry Joy. And we see some of that even with our student leaders here. And I was taken aback because we, at this level, if you are a leader and your focus is on title, but not on the outcome of your decisions, not on the impact of your leadership, then we have a problem in the future. I watched a video of KNUST SRC. The SRC president was expected to deliver the State of the SRC address. And I watched the video where a Mercedes-Benz brought her to the venue where she was supposed to read the State of the SRC. Many bodyguards, they opened the door for her. Another person was holding her file. And, you know, the entire, it's like we were trying to dramatize the whole thing. I was like, it means some of us were never SRC presidents because we never enjoyed such privileges. The point I'm making is that because student leadership is the platform for you to pick the right values, it is important for you as young people to, at this level, pick the right values, act the right values, and do the right things now. Because whatever you start at this level, that becomes a part of you when you get bigger platforms. It is not just politicians. When you are made a leader in the corporate world, how do you act? If at this level you are a leader or you are the class rep, course rep, and because somebody does not address you, your colleagues do not address you as course rep, you take offense. You are more concerned about how you are addressed or how they speak to you. It is possible that in the corporate world, you find yourself in a situation where every member of management will have issues with you because you are more concerned about how they address you. But the most effective leaders I have seen are leaders who are not even interested in how they are addressed, but they come down to the level of everyone. That is the only way people can even have confidence in you. So pick the right values. Now, what are some of the lessons that I learned from student leadership that is helping me today in national politics? The first one is humility. It doesn't matter what kind of leader you are. We have various types of leaders, and I'm sure in your lecture rooms you may have learned the theoretical aspect of types of leader, who is a leader, all of that. You've learned it. So it's not my job to now take you through that. But regardless of what type of leader or what type of leadership you ascribe to, is to be humble. Because the leadership is service. Leadership is service. When you're a leader, you're supposed to serve. You are working for the people. So when you're a course rep, Your job is to work for the people, not for the people to work for you. And so the first lesson I picked from student leadership, which has helped me, and I believe it will take me far, is that it pays to be humble. Humility is key in leadership. That's the first lesson I learned. It is also through humility that others can come and offer support for you, because no matter who you are as a leader, no matter how strong you are, how visionary you are, you need people, you need to carry people along to succeed. So when I was SRC president, all the great things I did at Legon, and I speak about my tenure with so much pride, because when you go to Legon today and you speak to people in management, they will tell you that we have had leaders and we've had Edem Agbana. My colleagues who were my colleagues who were in school with me at the time, even those of them that are in NPP, when you ask them, how was this gentleman's tenure at the University of Ghana as SRC president, most of them will say very nice things about me. It doesn't mean that I did the work alone. I did it with a team. But I was able to carry them along because of humility. As a leader, you must have the humility to listen, humility to work with people, and also pay attention to the team members. So that is key. Number two, as a leader, you must have a vision. The problem we have today is that there are many people occupying positions without an idea what it is that they want to do with their position. When I declared my intentions of going for, first I contested as a national executive. I was elected a national executive of the NDC at the age of 27. And according to them, I am the youngest ever elected national executive of any major political party in Ghana. Now, at the time I was elected, when we went for our orientation as national executives, I presented a paper to my national chairman, and I said, this is my vision for the position. And everybody was amazed, because people thought, you are just here to occupy a position, you've campaigned, and let's just flow with what everybody else is doing. I said, no. As a leader, you must have a strong vision. So if you don't have a vision and you're occupying a position, anything at all, any distraction, anything can sway you. I've been elected parliamentary candidate, and about a month ago, I launched a manifesto for my constituency. And the media, they were calling. Everybody wanted to find out, your party has launched a manifesto, and this is the first time somebody running for MP is also launching a manifesto for his constituency. I said, it's because I'm coming into the office with a vision. I want the people to relate to the vision that I have for them. So I'm not keeping it to myself that when I win, I'll do A, I'll do A, B, I'll do C. I am telling them what I'm capable of doing, what I want to do, what is beyond me, so that the people will have a way of managing even their expectations of you. So if you're a leader, you must have a vision. But the good thing is that you don't even need to occupy a leadership position to have a vision. Today, as you are in class, what is your purpose? Are you here only because it is part of the academic requirements? Are you here because you believe such activities will in any way impact you? The kind of mindset that you enter this auditorium with will also determine what you will leave here with. The second lesson I picked from student leadership is that all those who succeed at it are people who have had great visions for the positions that they occupy. Before you go for any position in your church, in your group, wherever, you must have a vision so that you can succeed. The third lesson I picked from student leadership is that great leaders do not have it all, but they have great teams. If there is an important character or characteristic if there is one thing I would advise every leader to have, it is the ability to assemble a good team. When you're a leader, you realize that as an individual, you have your strengths, you have your weaknesses. And so you can't do it all. But when you put together a very powerful team, a team that will complement your efforts, not a team that will be sycophantic, not a team that will come and worship you or that is always cheering you on, even when you are failing. A team that is able to bring some value to the table. You will always succeed as a leader. You always succeed as a leader. I recall when I was SRC president at the University of Ghana, because I was fighting management, our structure was such that before you undertake any activity as SRC, you must write a letter to management and they release funds for you. But because I was fighting management on many issues, in their own ways of trying to find a way of sabotaging you, they will also delay in the disbursement of funds to the SRC, so that when you are failing or you are not performing, the students will be angry with you. So I found a way. How do we find an alternative way of raising funds? I realized that there was a lady in my class at the time, very apolitical. She didn't even vote during the SRC elections. She didn't want to have anything to do with politics. But she had a strength. Her strength at the time was that she was very close with a number of celebrities and all the big people. I don't know how she did it. And if you know Echo House, they organize events for students, universities, and all of that. She was a key member of that team. I went to her, spoke to her, and I asked her that I want you to come and lead my sponsorship drive. And amazingly, she was able to bring a lot from companies, telcos, and other people, because she was just connected in all that space and all. And this is somebody who never wanted to have anything to do with politics. But her presence in the team changed a lot of things. But you, the leader, ultimately people will praise you. But the actual work is being done by others. But there was something about her that my other executives didn't like. If you're looking for somebody that can speak her mind and tell you in the face that, no, you are, I don't want to use some words. She was one. But we needed to accommodate her, because as a leader, when you see a strength of somebody in your team, don't focus on the negative. It is the person's strength that you need to drive the vehicle to the destination that you want. So as a leader, pay attention to the people in your team, bring people on board, not to come and praise you, sing your praises for you to know that they like you, but people who add a lot to your leadership, people who will bring a lot to the table. The fourth lesson is that as a leader, you must be able to communicate. Communication is key. What is a vision without any clear communication? How do you carry people along if you cannot communicate your vision to them? Because sometimes you are likely to make decisions that your followers will not receive well, because they may not understand. But how you communicate it to them, how you communicate the decision to them, can determine whether or not they will accept it or reject it, whether they will follow you or they will believe in you. Let me give you an example. I realized at the time as a student leader that there were many uncompleted projects on the University of Ghana campus, and many of them were Get Fund projects. It got to a point we needed some of those structures, like examination hall and all that. So I sat with management and I said, I want us to increase the SRC dues by 100 Ghana cedis and call it development levy. Now, when you increase it, I will leave school at the time, or I'll hand over before you collect it, because they will do that in the next academic year. So it is not a decision that anybody can say, oh, you are going to benefit from it personally. But if every year or every 4 years, students are made to pay 100 Ghana cedis as development levy, we can finish all these projects. When we first announced the decision, it wasn't easy. The students, students never want to pay more. I moved around from class to class. I was explaining that it's a sacrifice we have to make. Some came, some wrote articles. There was uproar. But finally, management accepted, and then the next year, they collected the money from the students. Now, this is what happened. Surprisingly, within 1 year, major projects were completed, and students now took credit. They were excited. So when you go to Lagos now, they have a very big exams hall. That's a project that was abandoned for more than 10 years. Under my leadership, we started taking development levy, and the project has been completed. Now they enjoy writing exams there more than any other place. Now that is what vision does. When you have a vision, but if you don't communicate it well, and that is why it's important for all of us as students, regardless of whatever profession you have chosen for yourself, you must learn how to communicate. Even at the workplace, your inability to communicate well can affect you in many ways. Many of you have great ideas. You are asked to pitch the idea. How to communicate it becomes a challenge. I used to work with a Canadian-based organization called Digital Opportunity Trust. We're traveling across the continent, and young entrepreneurs, young students were asked to make presentations, or they will make a pitch. Sometimes the organization has so much money to give out, but you are given 3 minutes to make a pitch about your ideas. Sometimes people come with very brilliant ideas, innovations, very brilliant ones. But at the end of the day, whatever you have done, whatever concepts you have only 3 minutes to communicate it. Some are not even able to finish their introduction before the time runs out. And so you find out that many of the people who won such grants were people who could communicate their vision very well. How do you learn how to communicate? Now we have social media as a great platform for learning. But unfortunately, my generation, I don't know whether we are of the same generation, but because I hear a new term, they call you is it Gen Zs? The Gen Zs, right? Now your social media is for different things. Many of you know the latest trends on TikTok, the latest trends on Instagram, on X, and it's usually about one celebrity or the other whose videos has leaked and all those other ones, right? But if I ask you the last video or presentation you watched from, let's say, TEDx, how many of you will be able to say something about it? Because we are all using our social media for the other things. It's all important. You can make a lot of money creating content and all of that. But social media is a great platform for learning. You can actually learn public speaking and how to pitch your business even in a minute. All of those things on social media. So I will encourage you to become students of social media for the right reasons. The other ones, you can add it for fun, but it's important for you to learn. So you cannot be a great leader if you are not able to communicate. You should be able to communicate your vision, communicate your challenges, communicate your achievements, communicate even your perception about team members. You should be able to communicate. So we need to learn how to communicate. Then you also need to have values. You can't be a leader that is moved by the wind. So today, if majority of the class says this is white, then all of us believe that you also move that it is white. If tomorrow another group says it is black, then, oh, I'm here because you always want to belong to the majority. No. Leaders must have conviction. There are some issues. It doesn't matter how many people are in disagreement with you. As a leader, you must have some beliefs that convictions that nothing should change. And sadly, that is one of the problems that we have in our country. And it is not about NDC, MPP, CPP. All of us, all the parties, most politicians are guilty of this. We have become a country so partisan that every issue is viewed or analyzed from a partisan perspective. So when the NDC says yes, MPP must necessarily say no. When the MPP says no, NDC must necessarily say yes, because we always want to be in disagreement. No. But as a leader, as an individual, what are your views on some of the issues? For example, there's a topical issue of LGBTQ. Many politicians are afraid to speak about it because people don't want to say things that will offend the group that is in disagreement or the group that is in agreement. So people are afraid. But as a leader, you must have convictions. If you believe that we have come to the age as a country where LGBTQ rights must be permitted or legalized, you should be bold as leaders to speak about it. If you think that we've come to a point where as a country it is not right for us to allow such rights, you should be able to speak about it. Not be dilly-dallying according to where the wind is falling. No. Leaders must have convictions. What are your convictions about this country? What do you want to do? What is your perception about the things that are going on? And so, because for many student leaders, they are people that are moved by where the majority belongs. When they grow and they acquire leadership at the highest level, again, they are people that are moved by what their political parties and co say. It is true that when you belong to a party, your views are mostly shaped by the position of the party. So there are certain things that I may disagree with my party, but if it's a party decision, you are forced to or you are whipped in line. And that is how it is in Parliament. But I always say that if it is a decision that goes against your personal principles, then it is even better you don't speak about it. And so, as a leader, you must have the courage to even stand alone when your decisions are unpopular with the people. I believe you and I can shape the destiny of this country. The hopes and the aspirations of the Ghanaian people can be shaped only through the right leadership. How do we start? It starts with you and I as young people. I believe that our generation cannot afford to fail this country. And so what we should do is that as young people, we should be interested in the kind of leaders that we have. As young people, we should be interested in the policies of our leaders. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be partisan. But you need to accept that the outcome of the political process has an impact on you directly. Let me give you a very practical example. Yesterday, I was reading some documents about importation of water and the fact that initially the Ghana Water Company predicted that by 2030, we as a country, we have to import water before we can drink water. Why? Because illegal mining has destroyed most of our water bodies. But the 2030 projection, I'm told, may even be reviewed backwards, because as we speak, in some regions, central, some parts of Ashanti, western, when you open your tap, the water that flows out now is like tea. Some of you have seen some videos, you've seen some pictures and all that. People are fetching some into bottles and all that they are displaying. Now, what has resulted in that? It's illegal mining, is that not it? You don't like politics. Let me just cite you as the example. You don't like politics. Maybe you have never voted, or you are not interested in even voting. But the few that are interested in voting will vote. Right? And they voted. Then you have a leadership that failed to address that challenge. Now all of us, whether you voted or not, whether you're a politician or not, you would have to live with the consequence of the leadership's inability to address such a basic challenge. So today, our health is at risk. Why? Because our water bodies are being destroyed by galamsey. So when you hear that there's a demonstration, there's a protest against illegal mining, I bet many of you here will not be interested in joining, because you will find it an activity by politicians, or you think that it is for those who are interested. But it is actually a fight for you. And before Ghana gained independence, it took student leadership, student activists, to lead that process. So I believe that for us to get the right leadership that we want, it depends on us, you and I, young people, our involvement in the political process. I want to encourage you today that the Ghana we want, the kind of Ghana that you are dreaming of, is possible. The kind of Ghana that you want, a leadership that cares, a Ghana that everything works well for you, it's possible. But it's only possible when you get involved and create it. Well, there's no country in this world where good leadership came as manna from heaven. It's as a result of hard work and the involvement of everyone. And so don't sit aside and say, let me allow the politicians to do it. Let me allow those who are interested to do it. No. All of you must add your voice, get interested, and together we can provide the leadership that Ghana needs so that we can build our country the way we want it. I need all of you to get involved. What are the prospects for our country? One, I see a more enlightened citizenry than it used to be. In the past, campaigns were reduced to political symbols. And so people made comments like, oh, in this region, even if, excuse me to say, a goat is a candidate, the person will win. In that region, even if a cat is a candidate, the person will win. Because the voting pattern was determined by where you come from, political symbols and all of that. But now we have a more enlightened citizenry. So people are making decisions. Look, I come from the stronghold of the NDC. But as candidates, I spend hours working, talking to the people, explaining to them why they must vote for me. In the past, just by emerging as parliamentary candidates on the tickets of the NDC in the Volta region, I could afford to sleep for the rest of the period. But on election day, I'll still win with a very convincing, very resounding margin. But it is not like that any longer. Citizens are beginning to demand accountability. So when you go to them, they will ask you questions. When we vote for you, what will you do for us? What about this? What about that? And all that. So for me, it's a good prospect that people are more enlightened now about the political process. Two is that we have many channels of expressing our grievances about the kind of leadership that we have. In the past, there was no social media. So if you are not happy with the government, you will rant and rant in your room and nobody hears you out. But now, with the help of social media, you are able to voice out your concerns. And so now we have the platforms to express our concerns, our dissatisfaction with the kind of leadership that we get. So it's very good for you. As students, add your voice. Don't reduce your social media to posting only about the food you were eating, which restaurant you have entered today. Let me streak my friends that I'm going to the nightclub and all of that. You can do all of that. I'm not stopping you, but use your platform also to add your voice, because the impact, the outcome of the political process affects you as well. So speak about the things that concerns you. If you drive on a road that is terrible, imagine anytime you drive on the road to your campus and when it rains, you see how the road is. Quite terrible. Even now it is better, because a few months ago, the road from here towards Hacho was not tarred. So those of you who traveled or who used that part, you see how it was very terrible some few years ago. Now imagine anytime you travel on that road, you make a comment, take a picture, take a video, and you put it out on social media. The political class will be forced to do something about it, because they see that people are expressing their concerns. People are not happy about it. When this Galamsey issue, Galamsey did not start today. But when they realized that a lot of people were talking about it on social media, people started demonstrating. You saw that the presidency was forced to release a statement. Then they said, okay, we have heard your concerns. We will do something about it. We have taken this action so far. We will do this starting from next week and all that. Because they have realized that citizens wanted to hold government accountable on the issue of illegal mining. But imagine all of us were quiet, and it was only the NDC that was making noise. Same if the NDC is in power. The point is that all of us must be active. We must be active participants in the decisions that affect us. In summary, student leaders are the potential leaders of this nation. And so student leadership is the springboard, is the platform for grooming leaders for the country, for the nation, for businesses, for all the organizations. Make sure that as a student leader or as a young person in school, you inculcate the right values at this level, so that when leadership is handed over to you at the national level, you should be able to drive the change that we all speak about. I will conclude by saying that may we not become the leaders we criticize today. May we not become the leaders we criticize today. May we not become the leaders we criticize today. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. I understand one of you has a mic for questions. Who has a mic? Okay, so it's with you. Like we always do, if you have any questions, you just raise your hand. We'll come to you with a mic. You would ask your questions. Yes, let's get the first set of questions. 1, 2. There was a third hand somewhere. 3, 4. Okay.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so So when you talked about bad leaders, I really like the point where you say that Africa is led by bad leaders. How do we recognize one, and how do we make a difference? Like who is the bad leader and who is the right leader for us?
He wants to know how can we
How determine
determine who a bad leader is and who a good leader is. Good question. Let me take three.
And to continue. Okay. Yeah, and to continue. Are we making the wrong decisions or are we being misled by the leaders?
Are we making
the right decisions or are we being misled?
Okay. If you can clarify your question. Are we making the wrong decisions? When you say we, who?
Because we choose, some of the leaders are chosen by us.
Great.
Okay, yeah. So are we the one making the bad decisions or are we misled?
Okay. Okay, we can take one more than for the first set. You can go ahead.
Okay. My question, before I will start, I will just challenge you that I'll be the youngest MP soon, by 22.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
I like your
so, the question I just want to ask, when you were starting, how were your challenges? Because as I started, people were asking me, Osman, do you have money before? Who do you know? Or like they were saying, you are young to be an MP. So I just want to ask, how were your challenges or what's... Okay.
All right, so let me answer this, the three questions. Let me begin with a question about whether or not we are making the wrong decisions or the leaders are misleading us. And you ask because we elect the leaders. Is that not it? I say it, and the truth is that the leaders we have are a reflection of the kind of society we have. We elect them from among us. So whatever they are doing, most of them, they are only reflecting or they are only projecting our values as a society. And I will give you an example. The trotro mate is stealing 3 cities, 2 cities, 5 cities, and yet he will say the leaders are corrupt. Is that not it? That is because the 5 cities that he is pocketing is just about, let me say, 10% or 20% of what his sales for the days are, and it's quite small. When you put that same person in national leadership and he wants to take 5%, 10%, 20% of what comes to him, that is when you hear the huge amounts. But there's no difference between the trotro mate stealing 2 cities a day, 5 cities a day, and the leader that is stealing millions of dollars. Because it is what the mate has access to that he is stealing. Is that not it? So the leader also, so it's about the fact that in this society, most of us, and when I say us, I'm referring to all of us, especially in this continent, honesty is not there. We are not honest people. We're talking about honesty as leaders, but the question, let me ask deep, and you can choose to answer from with your conscience. How many of you alone in the exams hall with the textbooks here, no invigilator, and you are struggling? You cannot answer a question. And how many of you can sincerely, okay, no invigilators, no cameras, no one monitoring you, you have your textbooks here, you are not allowed to take it. How many of us can still write the exams and would prefer to fail without copying or without asking your friends nearby. You are. But you see, I just got about 3 or 4 people raising their hands. And it's good. Why? Because sincerely, many of you know that in such a situation, you will resort to cheating. Even when invigilators are around, you are finding ways and means of cheating. Is that not it? No, that's the kind of society we have. So the leaders are from the society. So it's both ways. But I believe it is the responsibility of leadership to chart a new path for society. So before Singapore got Lee as their leader, there was corruption in Singapore. There was mismanagement of their resources. But one leader from the same society came and decided to do things differently. And we saw the results. Today, Dubai. And I will recommend this book, My Vision. How the Prince of Dubai transformed Dubai from a deserted place to what it is today, that all of us, number 1 tourist destination in the world today. Everybody wants to go there. It is leadership. So even though it is society that produces the leaders, it is the responsibility of the leader to chart a new path and carry the people along and teach them to be honest. How do we distinguish between bad leaders and good leaders? Good leaders, bad leaders, what are the characteristics? Leaders, when you're a leader, you must be honest. When you're a leader, you must be accountable. When you're a leader, you must be transparent. And you must use the resources available to you to the benefit of the people. So anyone that is not doing that, we can say is a bad leader. And that is why we say Africa, we have a problem. Because sincerely, look around the African continent and see the challenges that we face. Look at the resources that we have at our disposal. The natural resources, all of those things are there. Why are we not making progress? Why do we have to still beg? Come to Ghana, you have more than 60% of our population into agriculture. They are farmers. In America, less than 10% of their population are into agriculture. But we still have to import food and many other things. Why? What is the problem? It is because of leadership. So you can distinguish between that because of the outcomes that you see. There are many challenges as a young person in politics. I faced many and I still face a lot. You talk about finances, it is one, yes. It is a very expensive venture to be in politics. And to run a parliamentary campaign in Ghana, the last time, is it the IEA or CDD, one of them, released a report where they said you need a minimum 4 million Ghana cedis to be able to run a successful parliamentary campaign. I think that the 4 million is an understatement. Maybe they are not privy to many of the things that we do as parliamentary candidates and all of that. That may be what goes directly into their campaign. So yes, you must have the financial muscles, but how do you raise funds? How you raise funds will also determine whether you will be a corrupt leader or not. For example, if you want to be an MP and you allow a businessman to give you, say, 2 million Ghana cedis to support your campaign, you need the money. And you are in office, you become a minister. Then the businessman is looking for a contract. He puts in his bid, and then you realize that a job that other people want to do for, say, 10 million, he wants to do it for 20 million. He comes to you that I want that contract and give it to me on so source basis. Because you have benefited from him or you took money from him to campaign, you feel, I want to find the right word, you feel you owe him an obligation to give him that contract. And so that is where the corruption comes in. Because one, the people of Ghana will not get a value for money, and you are inflating the cost of the project because he wants to recoup the investment he made in you when you were campaigning. So corruption is a very complex topic in politics. In other jurisdictions, citizens contribute to support a campaign. So when you come to my situation, because I have a very, very strong views on corruption, I organized a fundraising event a couple of weeks ago. Invited my friends from school and others. I sold my vision to them, made a PowerPoint presentation on what I would need the money for, how much I need to run my campaign, and I asked them to donate. So they were donating as friends, they were supporting, and when that comes in, none of them will say, I'm giving you 5,000 or 10,000 because I want you to come and give me a contract. And so your hands are not tied. After that, we launched a short code where people are donating 5 cedis, 2 cedis, 1 cedi to your campaign to support. That's what happens in developed democracies. But here it's very difficult too. So for me, every day I'm advertising my short code and people are contributing for you to run a campaign. Because when you go seeking that support from individuals, you are subjecting yourself to their control. And that is why many of our political or public office holders are corrupt. Because whoever has invested 2 million, 5 million into your campaign, 5 million Ghana cedis, that is a huge investment. The person is definitely not running a charity organization where he or she will give you 2 million and ask you to go. They want to find a way of getting it back. So alternatively, you must raise it from people. Let the people themselves contribute to their campaign and run a very modest campaign. So finances is one. But finances is not the biggest challenge you will face as a young person in politics. I think that the biggest challenge you face is that we have a very conservative society where when you are young, they find it difficult to give you a chance to be their leader. I faced a very difficult primaries. Why? Because I was the youngest. People just couldn't accept the fact that this 32-year-old boy will be our MP. That's the biggest challenge you will face. And your seniors, those who are older than you, are also likely to be fighting you more because they don't see why you are rising or you want to come and occupy a position that they wish they had occupied. And so there are many other challenges, but these two are the ones that you will meet more on your journey to Parliament. I wish you well. Which constituency? Nantom. Okay. I wish you well. I hope to welcome you to Parliament 2029. So you'll be voted in 2028. You'll be sworn in 2029. I wish you well. All right. Any other questions, please?
All right. There's a questions.
Okay.
Okay, my question is not related to politics, actually.
Okay.
I want us to look at a situation where you don't have a leader, but you say you have a boss. You have a boss.
A boss, not a leader, yes.
Yes. So I want to know, in that state, can your boss be your boss and at the same time your leader? Because bosses, sometimes they give instruction to leaders, and the leaders work with the team members so that they will be able to execute what the boss is asking them to do. So I want to know if in that state, your boss can become your leader and your boss as well.
Great. So leadership is not a position. Leadership is not a title. Leadership is an act. So you can be in a team where you are not holding an executive position, but by your actions, you have become the leader of the group. So leadership means your ability to influence people. So yes, you may have a boss. You may have a boss or a manager, somebody leading or occupying a position that you're supposed to report to. But if the person is not able to influence your actions, then the person is not your leader. But if the person is able to influence the actions of the group, is able to carry people along, then the person becomes your leader. So the leadership is a very tricky topic. It is not the position that we occupy. And we see that in organizations. You may have people in your class who may not necessarily be the course reps, but when they speak, they are able to carry everybody along. The respect you give them, the charisma with which they carry themselves throughout, you can refer to such people as the leaders. Do you get it? So your boss can be your leader depending on his or her ability to influence you. Okay. Well, you have asked a very important question about how to manage your time, because we are doing, or you do many other things. I think that it is important to say, when I was in a senior high school, there was a motivational speaker invited to speak to us, and he said there is nothing like time management, but we only have self-management, because that's what the time is fixed. Whether you sleep or not, 24 hours is 24 hours. Whether you are feeling well or not, if it is 3 p.m., it is 3 p.m. So time cannot be managed, but you can manage yourself. How do you do it? You need to learn priority, how to prioritize. And so in addition to all these things, I still make time to interact with friends or go out for social events. But all the things that we do, when you are effective and you are able to sacrifice a bit more, you can do all these things. For example, agricultural activities. The gentleman I came with is a very, very, very big farmer. 4 years ago, he cultivated close to 1,000 acres somewhere in the Volta region. But he still comes to Accra, engages in many other activities, including politics. Because these things are, some of them are even seasonal. They are not daily routines, and you have other people that will help you to manage them. Again, you should also learn how to delegate. So I have a sports academy in my hometown, but I have selected very effective people who are helping me to manage it. So I don't have to be available for it 100% of the time, but I trust that the people I've delegated will do a good job, and they are doing a good job. Then the farming season, you just make time to work with people who can give you the right results. And so it's two things: self-discipline, prioritizing your own schedules, and then you know what to do at what point. And then lastly, you should be able to work and delegate, work with people who can give you the results that you need. And let me say this, that for me, one of the ways by which I can judge who a good leader is the performance of the leader's team in his absence. When you are not around, your team, are they able to deliver the results? If they are not delivering results, it means that you are not impacting them right. So one of the ways by which I can judge who a good leader is the performance of the team in the absence of the leader. So you should be able to delegate, and delegate well. Thank you. We can take some more questions.
Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to ask about the conviction you mentioned, about a leader being able to have conviction in his visions and ideas. So let's say you have a vision that, let's say, the country can move from being a third world country to a first world country in the next 30 years, which is something that might or might not happen depending on how you take the projects. And then how do you maintain conviction in something that might be deemed impossible by other people? And how do you make your team or the people you are working with believe in your vision and idea and have a faith that it will end up coming to pass?
Great. First thing is the clarity of your vision. It is possible to have a vision that is not clear to the people. When there's clarity of vision, it is easier to carry people along. Now, when there's clarity, how do you communicate the vision to them? I cited that in my presentation earlier, that sometimes the vision may not appear popular with the people, but how you communicate it to them and get them to understand will help you to get their buy-in. Then people will begin to support you. Again, you should also have realistic vision. If any leader tells me that it is possible to transform Ghana in 18 months or to take Ghana from a third world country or middle income economy to a first world country in 8 years, it sounds sweet, but sincerely, no country can in 8 years have such a great transformation that all of a sudden you move from a third world, you show prospects, you make progress, your economy begins to pick positive signals, growth is stable, you can do all of that. But no country can have such a development in 8 years. And that is why in some countries, they have drawn 20-year development plan. Ghana, we had 40-year development plan. Because realistically, in 8 years, you cannot take a country from a third world to first. So the clarity of the vision and then your ability to let the people understand that it's even achievable. And that is why you must be realistic with certain targets. You simply cannot set a target that in 8 years, Ghana will become, Ghana's economy will become as big as that of America. In fact, nobody will believe you. They actually will think that you are just joking. You can't set a target and say, or you can't be campaigning and say things like, when I come to Ashanti region, I will make sure we have the sea here and all of that. You see, so these are some of the things. You have to communicate a clear vision, but the vision too must be achievable. Don't just speak it out because you want people to believe that you have a vision. Yes.
During your presentation, you made mention of the resources that Africa naturally has. But then one thing I realized whilst I was doing my own studies a while back and stuff is that because of the, let's say, consecutive borrowing made by most African countries, we aren't even able to utilize our resources ourselves. So how do you say we should go about doing that?
Yeah, the solution is industrialization. And industrialization will come about when you have the right leadership. So all our resources, see, our economy is structured in such a way, as Africans, I'm talking for the entire continent, that we have the resources, but in order to add value to the resources, most of these resources, we have to take them outside the country. So we don't own the value chain. Look at gold, for example, cocoa. If Ghana and the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, decides not to sell cocoa again, the entire world will experience shortage of cocoa by over 80%. So why are we not investing in processing here? Why are we not investing in adding value here? Why are we not investing in ensuring that we rather sell the finished products to them? But they will come and buy the raw materials at a very, very low price, add value, bring it back, and we buy it, and it's so expensive. I observed a trend recently. I went to the Accra Mall to buy something. I realized that even Gary, that's something as simple as Gary. Now, the Chinese are buying Gary from us. They package it, they send it to their country, they package it and send it back in various forms. And it's so expensive with various brands, customized in some ways. And so when you go to the mall now, you see various brands. And some they are written made in China and all of that, Gary. So the solution is industrialization, for us to be able to add value to our raw materials. And then we sell the finished products. Africa took a very important step with the decision to promote intra-Africa trade. But why are we not seeing the benefit of it yet? It is because many of the African countries have bilateral economic relationship with other countries outside the continent. And the moment they begin to impose tariffs on some products, grants and other supports that they get from those countries will stop flowing. So they are afraid. I don't know if you are getting it. So they are afraid to do that. So even though we have AFTA and we have all the infrastructure ready for us to promote trade within the continent, how many countries? It has taken us close to 50 years. Every year when they go for their meetings, they are discussing having a common currency. And they are not able to implement it because Ghana has an interest, France has an interest. So we are pushing it. The Francophone countries are also pushing their own agenda. The Anglophone countries are also pushing their own agenda. And so we have many currencies, and trading among us is so difficult. And that is why we've all accepted the dollar as a standard for Forex. So when we are talking about our Forex exchange or exchange rate, the dollar has become the standard, is that not it? Why are we not using the CFA? Why are we not using the other currencies from the neighboring countries? You see, because we've not been able to build the structures ourselves. And so we still depend heavily on those other countries. But there is hope. There is hope because globalization and the digitization and digitalization, they are two different concepts, is now making it possible or making it easier for us to promote trade among ourselves. I believe that it will not be long. ECOWAS, for example, should have a common currency and that will really help in promoting trade among us. I pray that our leaders are able to sign and get the African countries to use one currency, or at least within the ECOWAS sub-region, we should be able to use one currency. Yeah. Any other question?
I heard you say that it's going to take about 40 years. About 40 years for, let's say, Ghana or Africa, it's like for there to be some kind of transformation from a third world country to a first world country. But then again, you said that through industrialization, we can easily turn that around. Studies show that within less than 10 years, within less than 10 years, a country can industrialize. Won't that mean that within the 8 years, if Ghana is supposed to focus solely on industrialization, its fate can turn around?
Yes, okay, so let me just clarify. I mentioned the 40 years because I I was referring to our 40-year development plan. So Ghana in 2015-2016 decided to adopt a 40-year plan for development. But even that plan was suspended after a new government took office. And so if we are to resume, we still have 40 years to start the implementation of that. It's just to drive from the point that, yes, development is possible, development can come fast, but to move from a third world country to first, realistically, looking at the situation now, 8 years is not enough for that. Some countries have 20-year development plans. Depends on what you have, your resources, and what it is that you want to achieve. Even Africa itself, we had Agenda 2060 and all that. Globally, the UN came up with SDGs. It was 2030. Many of the targets, African countries are not able to even reach the targets as we speak. But the point is that even if you focus on industrialization, yes, it will drive the growth process faster, but it is not realistic to achieve what we call development in 8 years, because development is not only the hard infrastructure that we're talking about. When you talk about development, even literacy rate is part. In 8 years, can we move Ghana's literacy rate to over 90% in 8 years? In 8 years, issues of even social services, are we able to, in addition to the industrialization, provide proper social welfare packages for the people of Ghana? In terms of our workforce, currently you have just about 700 or 800,000 people working within the public space, but government is spending more than 80% of its total revenue in payment of salaries and all of that. How do we restructure that? How do we bring in the private sector? So development involves a lot of things, and industrialization cannot be achieved even within the 8 years. It is a process. That's why we say development is a process and not an event. Okay. Any other question? Yes.
So if every leader has a vision, how do you trust that after your term, people will be willing to continue with the long-term goals that you have set?
Very important question, because it's one of the challenges that we have in Ghana, where the MPP starts projects. When they lose the election, the NDC comes, they will not continue because they feel when they continue, they will have to give the credits to the other political party. Same way the NDC starts projects, MPP comes to office, they will not continue. We have many, many projects, housing projects. One of the projects that really, really breaks my heart is the Saglemi. How many of you know about Saglemi? Wow. Saglemi. Oh. This is really an apolitical class. Okay. How many of you know Ifya Odo? I've been asked to ask you. So Saglemi project is a housing project. You can Google it. It's a project that the NDC government started. Very beautiful, very huge apartments supposed to house our security agencies. It's on the Tema Pram to Adan Road. So we call it the Saglemi Housing Project. The NDC completed phase 1, but did not allocate it before they left office. Today, all of that has been left to rot because government refused to continue the project or even allocate. Several debates about it, that they were doing auditing. Now they said they are selling it. It's a whole lot. But when you see the project and the amount of money that has been invested into it, it's a pity that one leader comes and your successors refuse to follow through with your vision. So that's why I'm saying that your question is a very good question. How do we ensure that your successor continues with your vision? I think that the first thing we have to do is to legislate that governments are bound to complete projects that their predecessors started. We need to do that in this country. If not, we get to a point where we waste so much resources, and because you leave office, whoever comes after you will not continue. So the first thing I believe is that because our democracy is still young, we need to have legislation which compels governments to complete such projects. Because as we speak now, it is only a political promise. So President Mahama is saying when he comes back, all the projects that this government has started, he will complete them. I believe him though, but imagine it, let's turn the tables. Imagine a government comes, let's say Mahama doesn't win and Cheddar wins. And Cheddar just an example, please. And Cheddar decides not to continue the projects. It means all the Agenda 111 projects are likely to be abandoned. And it happened in many cases. Hospital projects, housing projects, roads, factories. We have seen all of that. So legislation is one. But as a leader, your ability to carry people along so that the projects are seen as necessities will also determine whether or not your successor can continue with such projects. But when there's so much controversy around the projects, your successor definitely will not be interested in completing them. And that has been the problem. I think President Kufuor also started some housing projects. So much controversy around the project, the cause, whether it's amounted to corruption and all of that things. So when a new leader came, he really wasn't interested in completing those projects. But that's government money we're talking about. Public funds have been invested in those projects. So we need to have proper legislation which compels leaders to continue with projects. But beyond physical projects, we also have policies that when you use the right channel, go through parliament and have the policies properly implemented, your successor must continue. I will give you an example. President Mills and the NDC decided to view the Constitution. So the Constitutional Review Committee went around the country, sampled views. We had national fora on it. A lot of activities went on. Then there was some recommendations for the review of the Constitution. Governments left office, a new government comes, and in talking about amending the Constitution, they started all over again. Setting up new committees, and all of this contributes to wastage of public funds. So I really think that we must have national conversation on it, but most importantly, we need to have a legislation that compels us to continue with projects that our predecessors started. Thank you.